All right, all you amazing humans out there, happy Wednesday. We got such a special, exciting day planned here. We have Brody Sutherland, who's the head designer for CABRINHA, one of them, and he's designed these brand new wings that are coming out from CABRINHA that just launched today. Make sure to check out CABRINHA and all they have to offer. It's the biggest launch yet. It's insane. Brody, big props to you guys for all you did. It's a huge launch. So are you excited about it?
Oh yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's a pretty big day for the brand. I've never seen like our whole crew just so excited and proud of everything they've been working on. So
yeah, and there's a whole new wing lineup. We got a new Vision we're going to talk about, and then we have the Mantis, which is your baby, and now that's the Mantis V3. So we're going to go into all this kind of stuff. So anybody listening in, make sure to tune in. We're going to go through like all the things that have changed and kind of the direction, and so let's jump into it.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody, make sure to drop your comment. We've already posted a video this morning on the Mantis versus the Vision, and we've had a lot of comments. So I know everybody's excited about it. Yeah, let's dive in. So let's start with the wings. What's new in the range?
Yeah, so we have 3 wings now in the range. We have the Mantis, the Vision, and the Apex. So Mantis is the wing we've had, kind of made CABRINHA the famous wing we've had for a long time. It's sort of a flatter, super powerful wing. Then we added the Vision to sort of cater towards it's more like a user-friendly wing, I guess, is kind of how I think of it. It's a bit higher dihedral, maybe a bit more forgiving. It's maybe not as like super grunty and powerful. It's just more like balanced, kind of fly off the fingertips feel, kind of targeted towards someone coming from maybe some of the other wings in the market that are just a bit softer. So that's kind of how I look at it. Then we also have the Apex, which is our new high performance wing. It has a new Ultra HP material that we've been developing for the last, I guess it's over almost 2 years now. So
now, is this a similar, quick to jump in, is that a similar like material to like the well-known Alula type thing? Is it like something like that? And I only say that to just be more vague.
Yeah, it's not quite as light, but it's significantly stronger and it can handle higher pressures. So what we've done is we've been able to reduce the leading edge diameter by, I think it's 15 or 20%. And that's saved a lot of weight just by removing that amount of material. That also means you can inflate the wing to a higher pressure, and then you're able to have a leaner profile and entry and everything. So you just have a faster, lighter, cleaner wing overall.
Yeah. So, and then just, on the Alula, I actually have never used like a wing with the Alula material, but is the leading edge like the same diameter as like other
most
wings?
Other brands that are using Alula, it looks like they've kind of taken a wing, like an existing wing, and they've sort of added Alula. They've just replaced the material, essentially. We've taken a material, utilized all the advantages of it, and made a whole new wing. So it's still called the Mantis Apex, but it has a lot of significant changes to it that make it quite a bit different feeling than the Mantis.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine like a smaller leading edge has a lot of advantage, and just like thinking like, yeah, like how it moves through the wind. If you have this like big thing, like it's much harder to like, it's less efficient basically through the wind. Being able to reduce the leading edge diameter is like a game changer, because we always see like the hard wings are like, before we the sport like came with like inflated wings, there was like the
rigid wings, yeah.
The rigid wings.
Yeah.
And it seems like that
Wind
is
wing, right? Wind wing?
Yeah, I think, yeah, something like that.
Something like
and
that. Yeah.
It seems like that is kind of like the most like efficient, but is like, it's just too complicated for like what we do on the water. And so it's kind of like, I feel like the Apex, the Mantis Apex was able to like get, a step closer to like that efficiency.
Yeah, that leaner LE just punches through the air a lot more efficiently. So you can go upwind faster, you can just carry more speed. And then the lightweight on the waves is unmatched. Like when you're riding in the surf, I know when we were shooting in Maui and the wind was like, it would pop up to like 15, you could just get up and then it would like completely die. And we're like on the waves and you can see some of the shots in the product video. Kiahi's just like cruising turns and the wings just like floating right behind him. It just kind of, it's like full of helium.
And another thing to add to that is, when you shrink the diameter of the leading edge strut, because you guys have this new strong material, you're also shrinking the size of the bladder inside, which takes a ton of weight out, right? That's like actually
the bladders are the heaviest
thing.
thing.
Anything is the bladder weight is
what
is the big weight in wings. So
So that's and what about like the material of the canopy, because that has been like a question I've been asked, like, is the canopy different?
No, the canopy is the same. We have changed,
and like window material is all.
Window material is also the same, but we've completely redesigned the panel layout of the wing. So now all the panels used to run straight forward back, and when you have your wing, it's sort of everything fans out from the corners. So when you have your panels running front to back, that stretches all the material on the bias, and your wing will tend to bag out more quickly. So we've rethought how you lay out the entire panels so that your warp and weft are oriented in the directions that the panels are loaded. And this means you have a much more rigid canopy frame just from the orientation of the panels, and your wing's also going to last longer.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Let's dive into some of the biggest advancements, I think, this year with these wings is we now have some rigid handles, which the first time I rode either the Kites, Mantis and Vision, was like home run. Like you're on the water just so fired up because it's so solid, so easy. And you have talk about a little bit of the spacers. So, you have a handle and your hand goes onto the handle and you can adjust spacers to adjust whether if you have big hands, small hands, gloves, whatever, maybe you want a little angle in the handle. Kind of give us a little more info on that.
Yeah. Handles are always the talk of winging. I like have a new prototype out on the beach and people come up and they're like, "Oh, can I feel the handles?" I'm like, nobody cares about all the other stuff.
Literally the first thing you notice when you pick up a wing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's your connection point to the wing. It is arguably the most important part because that's your first point of contact. So we've gone with kind of it looks like a rigid handle. It feels rigid, but it does have some flex to it. If you take the handle off, you can feel it's a flexible TPU material, so it's not going to break or crack. It also is overmolded, so if you hit yourself in the head with it, tacking, whatever, it's soft to the touch. We didn't want to make something that's going to ding your board or hurt the rider, so it's we've really thought out all the materials and the design. We've also added the spacers that you talked about. So let's say you have gloves on, you want that wing spaced a little bit further away from your knuckles. You could add 2 spacers on either side, or maybe you're someone that rides overhand on the front hand instead of underhand. And maybe you want a little bit of angle on that front handle so that's just a little nicer on your wrist. You're able to just add the front spacer, but not the back one, have a bit of angle there.
I never thought about that, overhand or underhand. That's really smart.
Yeah, it's something I thought a lot about when we did these handles and the strut shape, because I'm an underhand, front hand person. I think most windsurfers I've talked to are, just because that's the nature of how you hold a windsurf boom. So I grew up windsurfing, so that was naturally how I grabbed a wing. But then I was watching some of our team riders and they grab overhand, and I started asking around, and it seems to be almost 50-50, I found.
Wow. It's well said. I never thought like why you'd want to maybe adjust those in certain ways, and saying that the underhand, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. So we've kind of catered our handles to fit. I mean, you can customize your wing to how you ride, which I think is pretty cool.
It's pretty interesting. We had a comment on somebody that basically was saying, not sold on hand handles, and I don't know what, like it would be interesting to know like what everybody like thinks about it, but to me, I think it's a game changer. Every time I go on a wing that has soft handles and then I go back to hand handles, I'm like, this is such a direct feel. When you have like soft handles, you lose a lot of like just the wing, how the wing is designed and how the wing performs, you always have that like
Play. There's a little play.
that play, that like that delay into any input that you put in the wing. And so I don't know, I'm just like I have had time thinking soft handle would be better, but maybe there are like people out there that like softer handles. But
I think people get used to a certain thing and they sort of they
Yeah.
kind of like what they're used to, and maybe it's a bit of a change. But if you've ridden the CABRINHA handles before, this is just an incremental improvement to what we already have.
Yeah, I mean, when we tested, when we rode all the new wings one day, we were just playing, riding the Vision and the Mantis, and I just remember going back to my gear that I had on the beach, and I was like, wow, can I keep these wings that we just provided because of those handles?
Yeah.
Well, so somebody commented right here, we just released a video a couple of days ago of Harry testing a prototype wing, and
Yeah, that same
so
day.
he gave his feedback, and he basically at the end of the session he was sold. He was, this is the wing I wanna ride now. He was always on the Mantis before. So somebody asked,
Yeah.
what was this wing? And so
Yeah.
it was the Vision.
Yeah.
And so maybe let's dive into the Vision a bit more in detail. Harry is sold on the Vision. Damien is sold on the Vision. I know a lot of like really good riders that are sold on the Vision. So the Vision can be very appealing to any level, from beginner to advanced rider. So somebody actually commented this morning, it looks like it wouldn't be a wing that would be good for beginners. Can you describe, is it a wing that could be good for beginners?
I think both wings are good for pretty much everyone. I've had that question before, like, what should I get, the Mantis or the Vision, as a first-time rider? And I'm sort of gearing people like, I think the Vision is actually a better beginner wing because it's just so easy to fly. It's like, if you point that strut, we're like, the wing does not wander from where the strut is pointed. It's just like super solid, really cruisy. With the added dihedral too, you're less likely to catch the wingtip on the water, which I think is one of the biggest things beginners struggle with. They don't get their front hand up, the wingtip catches, it rolls over, and it's super frustrating. So if you can have that wingtip just be a little further from the water, it makes it way easier. Both the wings have like a pretty similar aspect ratio, which, like, if you looked at the numbers and looked at the wingspan or laid them on top of each other, it's like, oh, they're kind of like the same wingspan. But when you ride the Vision, it feels just way more compact.
And for people listening, dihedral is, if this is a wing that's flat, dihedral is like an up, the amount of shape up this way in a wing. So the flatter you get, just so people know what dihedral is.
So if you think about taking that dihedral and you have more dihedral and then you tip your wing, like when you're riding, this wingtip is just, it's way further from the water than if it was perfectly flat.
That's why the 8-meter version is only, is in the Vision model, where the Mantis stops at 7 meters.
Yeah, the Mantis goes from 2 to 7. Vision goes from 2 to 8.
And, correct.
And it's interesting to hear you say the Vision, is really good for a beginner too, because I would say I've had a little bit of time on the wings, and Gwen's and you guys have had way more time, but my reaction is probably similar to Harry's reaction, and that was when I got on it, it just felt so easy and light, and like I didn't have to try. Not saying the Mantis you have to try. It just felt even easier, and maybe that's the dihedral. It felt really light in my hands, and I love the Mantis, and that's why, like, I think you're spot on. They both will work great. Like, there's no negative to them. And then my only other reason I think it's pretty reason I liked it a lot was John and I went out on an 8-meter on a really, really light day. And an 8-meter is just like, we don't really ride 8 meters, we'll call it. But having that dihedral on that 8, like, I didn't even know what the wing was. It was just a wing, but it would, turned out it's a Vision now. But I was just kind of shocked with, is just pull in and go. Like, to me, that's what that felt like. And John and I were laughing because we were like, man, this thing is I would love to ride this a little more powered up and just go hover around, because I feel like you could jump. It would be so floaty and so mellow, and so I don't know. I was pretty impressed, and I just think the upgrades this year that were done on both the Mantis and the Vision. I just think there's dump valves now, so the kites will deflate like that. There's a lot of upgrades that I think were some of these things that were just like a little bit, not even a bad thing, but just like you'd notice or something, so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
it's
maybe
funny,
Brody, maybe go over like we were talking just before the show on like the 8-meter being used for racing.
Oh yeah.
And we've had like Joey Pasquale like using it, absolutely like destroying everybody
Yeah.
in San Francisco. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, we had a downwind race here actually in it's kind of beginning of the summer, and Joey and I were both thinking like, oh, we're not going to take a huge wing, because it was just a straight downwind race down the Columbia River in the gorge, and we're like, oh, we should be able to run kind of steep angles faster than people. And then halfway into the race, we realized you just need the biggest wing possible. It's all about how much power can you carry. So then the bridge to bridge race was kind of, I think it's in September in San Francisco. And Joey's like, I'm taking the 8-meter. Like, I don't care how windy it is. I'm taking the 8. And I guess he said he was unbelievably overpowered, to the point where he didn't even want to line up on the start line with everyone, because he was just so lit. So he kind of hung back, waited for everyone to take off. And he said he just absolutely ripping downwind. And I think he ended up first or second. I can't quite remember. But then the craziest thing to me,
the upwind,
the craziest thing to me was all those guys hang out at the bottom and then they wing back home. And it's not the official race thing, but they do it. And Joey took that 8-meter in 20 to 25 knots and went back upwind, and he got second. And he wasn't even tacking, because he was so overpowered he couldn't get the wing to drive into the wind and attack. So he was chicken jiving every single jive, still got second.
Which is crazy, the high end of that wing, because it's technically like focused on the low end, but it handles the high end incredibly.
It's got big range for sure. It's I have both wings. It's funny, they're always both in my car, and I can't tell you why I pick one over the other day to day. I think sometimes if I want to go out and just like cruise with my friends and sort of think less and just have like take a bigger board and a slower foil and cruise around and do some 360s, I find myself grabbing the Vision. And if it's windy and I want to go fast and rip some waves and whatever, then I find myself grabbing the Mantis. That's sort of where I found myself.
Which could bring us to one of the questions here. Talking about wave riding, which wing is the most stable in wave riding out of the range, Mantis, Apex, V3, and Vision?
I think the Apex and the Mantis are probably, if I'm going to like purely wave ride, I'm probably going to take the Apex just because it's so light. If you don't want to pay for that higher price point, I'd probably buy the Mantis. That flatter shape just has less of a tendency to wander on the wave. It's just more predictable. And I think those flatter wings go upwind better. So when you're doing laps, trying to go upwind and then ride swell down, you can punch upwind faster on the Mantis or the Apex. Yeah.
So I know Kiahi, which he's incredible in waves. He's always on the Mantis. So that's his choice. It seems like the Mantis would be a good fit for wave riding. Not saying the Vision can't. That's the thing, is like we are being very critical here of like of like which wing would be the absolute best, but you can do anything on any wing basically.
It's not, I think we like all came from kiting and we're like, oh, you need a different kite for all these different disciplines, right? Like you have a wave kite and a big air kite, but I think a good wing is just a good wing. Like it does everything.
And I would always add, like, to everybody out there listening too, like comfort is king too. Like if you feel really comfortable on something, that's comfort it's the hugest advantage in any sport, I think. And that's why see if you can get your hands on some, try to demo some, and then you'll kind of find the right one for you.
But it's nice sometimes to be able to blame the wing for the poor riding.
It's True.
So if I don't ride waves really well, I can say, yeah, but I just don't have the wave riding wing. That's, you know.
You just need to drop it in the surf and run it over with your foil, and then you can say,
And these are some of the upgrades we kind of briefly chatted, but they put a dump valve in the center struts, so the wings will deflate really quick and easy. That's a good upgrade.
We've also got the dual sprint valve. So there's 2 tubes on the side of the strut, which just means faster inflate. And if you don't want to pull that dump valve, it deflates pretty quickly, to be honest.
Perfect.
It depends if you're maybe your session went a little long and you need to run home and pick up the kids from school or something, then you can rip that dump valve and go super fast. But
which wing will be lighter bar pressure on the hands and arms? I'll let Brody answer that one. Paul?
I think it's probably the Vision. I think it just has that kind of like lighter feel. It's got sort of, it has like a tendency to sort of lift on its own, even on the front handle. So it like feels lighter, even if maybe it's like,
yeah, it feels really balanced. I would agree.
Yeah.
100%. I something around, it just feels easy in your hands. And the Mantis, it's not like it doesn't, it's different. I don't know. They're minute differences for sure.
It's definitely subtle enough. I think you got to try them both.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, in terms of size, if you would take same size, you know, let's say Mantis 4 meters, compare it to Vision 4 meters, do they have the same wind range?
Yes, I would say, yeah. I think it depends what you're riding. Like if I ride a sinker a lot, so I can probably get up and going on the Mantis in less wind, just because it has that like really grunty power and it just feels stiffer. But as far as like what size I would take, I don't change what size wing I grab between the two, depending on conditions.
So then in terms of like low end, how I see it, to me, I would almost say like you can get more low end out of the Mantis, but you have to know how to do it. It doesn't come from the wing necessarily. It comes from your pumping technique. And then the Mantis allows you to get that extra power in the low end. But if you compare, like if you take the technique out of it and you just say pull in and go, would you say they are about the same? You would get the same low end?
I think the Vision actually maybe has a little bit more low end, just as far as like a sheet and go wing. It's got a deeper profile. It just generates more power on its own. So if you just you're on a bigger board, you just want to get up, stand there, sheet in, wait for a puff and go, the Vision's probably the wing for you. The Mantis, if you know how to pump your wing and generate power, you're going to be able to get more out of it. But that obviously takes the technique. Some people just want to sheet and go. So I think that's it's kind of like if you looked at our kite range, I would put the Switchblade is kind of like the Mantis. It's just like a sheet and go grunty wing. Maybe the Moto X is more similar to the Vision, just a sort of lighter, but you got to kind of fly it more.
Wow, there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of questions going on here. I'm like, some of these, I'm like, wow. I agree, Duke. I think hydrofoils and boards, I think wings, you know, for anybody out there, it's like, oh, maybe I can't afford a new wing or whatever. I think, look, if you get a board that you can stand on, somewhat of a larger foil, you know, any wing kind of gets you going. But I can tell you that these 2 wings right here will be spectacular.
Should we dive into the foils, because that's another like really exciting part of the launch, is the new H series foil, the high aspect range of foils. Can we go over what it is and maybe the difference from last year?
Yeah. So this year we've sort of gone with last year we said, all right, 900 mil is a pretty good wingspan. I'm really happy with the performance of that. So all the wings kind of had a straight, if you lined up like 1200, what is it? Yeah,
1200,
800, they all the same wingspan. This year we've kept the same aspect ratio for most of the wings except the 550. And that means you just have the big wings have way more lift and are way more efficient. So we've got 1300, 1050, 850, 700, and 550. Depending on your skill level, you can sort of place yourself in that sizing. The 1300, I know, Gwen, I think you're using that for beach starts, and I'll use it for stepping. And
I love it.
Yeah, really light wind, light wind downwinding. I know John loves it for just light wind winging. It's just like it's kind of a session saver foil. It's just got all the lift and glide. I think a lot of people are probably going to fall into the like 1050, 850 category. I think will probably be the top sellers. That 1050 is my go-to for sup downwinding. It's just like a super efficient, lots of lift foil. It has massive range. It'll get you going in super light conditions, but it also has like a pretty high top speed for the size. We've basically just leaned out the wingtips and the profile, so it's just a leaner foil overall, but then it also has a pretty decent amount of camber through the airfoil to sort of get you up and going. The 850 is probably my go-to for winging and surf foiling. It's just like a great all-around fast foil, super playful, really turny. And then the 700 is probably what you see Kiahi on most of the time. It's just a notch faster. Maybe you lose a little bit of pump, but you gain so much speed. It's probably also what I'd race on. And then the 550 is like my high wind go-to. So if it's ripping windy, there's huge swell, that foil is insanely fast.
Any big changes to the masts?
Yeah, the new mast is doesn't look completely different, but it's an entirely new mast. We've completely changed how we make it. So it's a bladder molded technology. So basically you have your mold, you close around your mast, and then inside we put an inflated bladder, just like your wing has. And we inflate that to like over 100 PSI. So that just means it squishes all those layers all the way as wide as they can go in the profile, and just leads to a way stiffer construction overall. And it's way more consistent as well than having like our old mast had a foam core. That's kind of the industry standard. So now we have a completely hollow construction. It's lighter. We've completely rethought the layup to balance the torsional stiffness and the bending stiffness, and also keep it light. I think masts are probably like the hardest part of the foil to design. There's so much that goes into them. So we've also rethought the airfoil as well. So
yeah,
we didn't want to go. A lot of people are like, "Oh, we just need a stiffer mast. We'll go really, really thick." And I was like, I just don't want to do that.
Which is what a lot of companies have been doing.
Yeah.
But then they have a ventilation issue.
Yeah. Then you have ventilation, and your mast is slow. So you can do that, and maybe for a lot of people who are just cruising around, maybe you wouldn't even think of that. It's not a big deal. But ours, we kept at our thinnest point, it's 14.5 mil thick. So it's a relatively thin mast in the market, but it's still really, really stiff, and it's super fast, and it doesn't ventilate. So I'm really happy with where we landed on our mast. I think it's a great performer.
Yeah, it's almost like the most like night and day difference from anything we had last year to something that just coming out this year. Like I feel like the mast is a huge improvement. And then I would say when I first heard of the name, and you just explain the process, but when I first saw the name Hollow, my first thought was like, what? It's hollow. I want something full carbon. And like what's going on? And I was like, they are even like saying it's hollow, like front and center. I'm like, this is not something that's good. I want full carbon. And then you just explain that, yes, like it's allowing the mass to be stiffer. If you do full carbon, you just don't have that pressure from the inside, like you explained.
Yeah. Well, also full carbon doesn't really get you anything, because if you have carbon right down the middle of your mast, there's no spacing between the skins. So picture if you just like grabbed a batten, like an old sail batten, and just bent it, it's just right down the middle. It's got no structure. But if you turned it sideways, now it's got some width to it. You can't bend it sideways. So the mast is the same thing. If you space those skins out, you get a lot more stiffness. That's why everyone's going super wide. because the wider it is, the wider those skins are spaced apart, the stiffer you're going to get. But obviously there's trade-offs there.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
And
let's
then-
go down. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna go just quickly over the. So we talked on about the foil. We talked about the mass, and then the connection between the two isn't something that necessarily like totally new. It was in the X series foil, but it's new to the H series range, which is the two screws on top and then one on the side. Maybe you can explain a bit of how that is like helping.
When you have that tight tapered fit, it just means you have to, like, all your tolerances have to be perfect to have that like fit really, really snug. And then also as you're turning back and forth, that joint wears over time. So over, I don't know, year, 2 years, it's going to get looser. It's just kind of how it happens. So we've added this screw through the side, and that just pulls the sides of the fuselage in against the mast. And you just get a way more rigid connection for a longer time.
That's amazing. Let's go into a couple questions here real quick, and we'll just throw you on the spot, Brody. Seems like everybody's going with the hard handles. Are soft handles a thing of the past? Well, what are your thoughts there?
I think there's always going to be the purists who love their soft handles. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think the only advantage is maybe packability of your wing. Like if you want to have the smallest, most compact wing to be able to roll it up into a little ball like this, then maybe soft handles, although you can just remove the handles and get that same effect.
Yeah, I think Peter,
I
would definitely just try because it's I think personal preference, but I think I was pretty blown away. Bar, is a bar ever going to be coming, or is that something of a thought instead of handles?
Like a boom?
Yeah.
Wing. I've thought about it. I just think there's not any, maybe for freestyle where you want to do like one-handed maneuvers, but we've also tried to place the front handle in a place where you can grab the back of the handle and do that. So
you're pretty much covered. Probably
I
not.
think you're just kind of making it more complicated with a boom. You're just adding another thing, but I don't know.
This one's an interesting question. Does the Vision stay on the water when it's hanging off the leash? Lying still, or is it kind of turning or a little more jumpy than say the Mantis 1 or 2, because they were really great at being stable when your leash was, I guess, activated?
Yeah, it's when it's upside down, I'd say it sits because of that dihedral, the strut sits further from the water, so you get a little bit more wind under it. I wouldn't say it's like jumping around. When it's the other way around, I think it's pretty neutral. We try and position the leash attachment point so it sort of keeps the wing pretty neutral.
There's one question for Gwen. Doc Start, please say something about, especially if you're 80 kg. So Gwen, give him your best.
Yeah, the question was 88 kilos. Is the 1300 good for that? And it seems like basically previously using a 1750 square centimeters for dog stand. So what I would say is the 1300 has a lot of lift, and that's why, if you were using something big before, that might seem like a big jump to go to something smaller, but that 1300 has like tons of lift. So yes, I mean the 1300 for dog stand is incredible for like flat water pumping. To me, I love it. What is your thought on it, Brody?
Yeah, I think with dock starts, at least when you're learning, like area is everything.
My question real quick, Brody, and this is important. I'm interrupting for a reason. Gwen and you are good. Would you still choose the 1300 learning it?
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking here is if I was learning, I think I'd go with just the biggest foil I can get my hands on.
Okay.
Because you're able to like jump on in the wrong spot and like fumble your feet around and you still are kind of going. The 1300, it's still a high aspect foil, so it will stall once you get below a certain threshold. So you have to carry a bit more speed onto the foil. So if I want to like pump for distance and time, yeah, I'm taking the 1300 for sure. But if I just want to like get the dock start, or I'm doing some rock start in some weird spot, like I'm going to take the 2100 X series probably.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
yeah, that was a perfect answer.
For learning, absolutely. And people see, me doing the beach start and they always ask, what foil are you using? And I'm using the 1300. But I would not recommend the 1300 to learn how to do the beach start. Once you get it dialed, sure, it's to me amazing. I love this foil. But to learn, no way. Like if you want to do the beach start, get the 2100. That's the rule. Like just like don't even like any like even dog style really is not super easy. So
Yeah.
you don't want to make your life harder than it has to be. You have to learn on something big, but it seems like from this comment, it was like he's already using the 1750, so he probably knows how to do it. Can he jump on the 1300? I would say yes. If you know how to do it, you're gonna love it. If you are learning, get something bigger.
Yeah.
I think you guys nailed it as very both end of the spectrum. And another one that I think would be kind of very interesting to say, and Brody could kind of go more in depth, is a lot of people, and I'm going to be more vague now because I think it's important, but all these wings are becoming more efficient, better. Foil wings are becoming more efficient, better, potentially sometimes a longer wingspan. And people go, well, now they don't turn in the ocean, or they don't turn, or they don't perform well. And what's changing for everybody, and Brody can tap on this too, is a lot of companies are shrinking the distance of the fuselage, which then adds a little more pitch sensitivity, but it will make a tighter turn on a wing that maybe is a little longer wingspan, and you can almost get the same kind of performance. It's a different kind of performance, but you can upgrade the performance. Would you want to kind of tap into that a little bit, Brody?
Yeah, we've got 3 fuselage lengths. That's another part we've actually upgraded. Our aluminum fuselage is now a composite construction. So we have an aluminum fuselage, but it's all shelled out inside. So it's super lightweight. Basically picture like a skeletal structure you'd see in some aircraft part. But then to keep that hydrodynamic and keep everything sealed, we've added these plastic plugs strategically placed. They also limit the corrosion on your mast. So now we have our aluminum part's the same weight as our old carbon fuselage, but it's, I don't know, half or a third the price. So we have 3 lengths in that. That really changes. I think that's probably the most drastic change. Like if you have the same foil, same stabilizer, and you change the fuselage, it totally changes the dynamics of the foil.
Yeah, and I only want to bring that up to just let people know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's perceived differently. Like I got a huge high wingspan wing, and it's not going to turn. And in theory, you can change fuselages to do different things. And I'm not saying your roll is going to change, but you can make the pitch do things.
Yeah.
It's something for people to start thinking about more.
Yeah. With the new H series, though, we did think a lot about, I've done a lot with the tip geometry and the shape of the tips so that the wing actually will drop into a turn like quite surprisingly well for the span. I think they're quite nimble. And with them being so thin, I mean, you can watch Kiahi's video. He's got the wingtip out of the water more than it's in the water.
Every turn.
He doesn't seem to care.
Yeah. And which also brings a point of people, sometimes say but high aspect doesn't turn as well. Yeah. And like, look at Kiahi. It doesn't seem to bother him. And so in my opinion, if, Kiahi is turning these foils like crazy, if you can't turn it, it's not the foil. It's
Is he running shorter fuselages? I'm guessing.
I can't remember. I think it depends on the foil. Sometimes I've actually found myself going back to the medium length fuselage. I used to love the short one, but kind of talking to Adam and Kiahi and some other people, if you have the longer fuselage, it's more predictable. So you can put a lot more force into that turn. It may take a sort of different technique, but I think when you're carrying a lot of speed and power, just having that foil as predictable as possible is kind of nice.
Yeah. Wow. Brody, legendary. There's tons of information here, and Mr. Doc Start Gwen and Backflipper up here, and then you got the old guy here just hanging out.
So let's see. I think there was some question about one, maybe we should mention the even though it's a different connection from last H series, you can still use your previous H series foil to the new mast.
Yeah.
So that works. And then I think somebody asked something about the if you would compare like the 800 and the 1000 compared to the 850 and the 1050 in terms of turning, in terms of even prone foiling? Like what would you say like the differences?
Yeah, so I guess let's start with 800 to 850 because it kind of sounds like we jumped up in size, but I would say that 850 is significantly faster than the 800 in top speed, and then probably has similar low end. And then that roll I was talking about in the tips, the 850 is just a lot more nimble and handles breaching better. So it's just kind of I think it's just an overall upgrade on the 800. The 800 was a fantastic foil. A lot of people really loved it, and I think the same is going to be said for the 850. It's just a notch up. If you were someone who loved the 800 and you're kind of looking for a new feel, maybe jump on the 850, or even jump down to the 700 if you're looking for something new. The 1050 to 1000, I think, is the biggest change because that 1000 is like a very, very like, I mean, so many people just absolutely loved that foil. And I think the new one having that bigger span maybe doesn't have quite the same turning, but it's just picked up so much like speed and glide, which I think just really changes it for the better.
When I first went on the 850, I almost felt like in terms of pumping, we went on this like downwinder when we did the what, because I forgot my wing on this down. We had one wing for both of us. And I was forced to like pump with that 850. I felt like I was pumping the 850 as easily as the 1000. So it's like if people really like the 1000 for prone, the equivalent would almost be the 850 in terms of like lift. But now you gain in carving and all of that.
Yeah. I think the smaller foil you can carry, you just gain so much in turning, you pick up so much speed. I think it's just more fun. Obviously, there's times when the waves are really small and you just have to go slow, and that bigger foil is necessary. But then you can jump on the 1050, and that works great as well. So.
Well, the other question was, would the 1050 be good for light wind winging?
Oh yeah, I love that foil for light wind winging. It's so like you can get up in almost nothing because it just takes barely any speed, pop you up, and then you can go so fast, generate so much apparent wind. Plus with that wingspan, it's kind of fun. You can like throw the wingtip out, like you can just cruise with the wingtip out, like that much of the wingtip. Just super fun.
And it doesn't cavitate or
no worries. And then I use that one for sup downwinding a lot, which I think kind of says something about how easy it is to get going. Like when you're paddling, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of technique to get that thing up. And I wouldn't say I'm the best sup downwinder, and I can get that foil going. So on a wing, it's just even easier.
Which is incredible because, when we talk about light wind, we always have these huge numbers in mind. Do I need like a 2000 for light wind? And now we are talking like the 1050 is good for light wind. And it's to me, that's pretty like incredible.
Yeah, the 1050 is probably the biggest foil I ever grab for winging.
But it's interesting
and super light than the 1300. But.
I think it's important for everybody listening and everybody out there is like really, ask those questions and talk to your local partners, because just in this conversation, you can see the changes from last year from the 800 to the 850. That like the 850 is just this, but then when you think about it, it's bigger, it's going to be slower, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And a lot of times this is that change that's happening in evolution. So just make sure you do your, learning and research on things. But I mean, the information here is incredible, Brody, and you guys have done a spot on job. And just really quick, jumping a little bit off the subject, but back onto the wings. Did anything change with the, for the Vision or for the Mantis on the wings, like the bags that it comes with or anything in that form? Or are those the same bags as last year? Just curious, just have more information out there.
Oh, what bag? No, the bags are the same as they're still the roll top bag. I think a lot of people really liked those because it's not this tiny bag that you're trying to squeeze your wing into. You can put 2 or 3 wings in it if you want.
It was just a question that came up, and I know everybody likes those bags, so I just wanted to reiterate.
I love the bags. Yeah.
Yep. Wow. Brody, you're a legend. Congratulations. And yeah, just excited for this year. Everybody that chimed in today, absolutely spot on. We're going to jump into a Patreon show here, but just super grateful for everybody. Look, thank you all for voting for Gwen being the total rock star potential wing foil content creator of the year.
Well,
and,
we haven't had the
we
result.
don't know. Yeah, we don't know
Okay.
what came up, but we appreciate you guys no matter what. We just do this because we love it. And look, we're here for you guys, and hopefully we can answer questions throughout it. Feel free to leave your comments, and hopefully we can get back to you with some information. But we just really appreciate everybody. And Brody, dude, you're a rock star. Congratulations. And yeah, we hope more people can share the water with you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah. If people want to find you, you are always at the hatchery in the summer. Is that where people can find you?
Yeah, that's a good spot to run into me. I'm there pretty much every day. And
we're
then
gonna put your cell phone number in the description so that everybody can call you about the real questions.
Yeah, perfect. I'll also be down in Jupiter, I think next week. Come hang with you guys.
Oh, no way. Sick.
Yeah.
Well,
It's wonderful.
Well, that's it. On that note, thank you everybody so much. And have a wonderful day. And hopefully this is helpful for everyone. And we'll see you next time. We got exciting ones coming up this year. So we appreciate it. Brody. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Thank
Have
you,
a
guys.
good day, everybody.